and welcome back to yet another episode of the New Era Lions with David Pyke. I, of course, am your host, David Pyke, wishing you all a merry Saturday. Hopefully, everyone is enjoying their weekend. Hopefully, everyone has not had a whole lot of things going on that are stressing them out. Hopefully, everybody just has a good time listening to the broadcast, putting in their input, and giving some feedback. Thankful for all that are going to watch the show live and for those that are going to tune in post stream. So let's get into it today. I will say this: it was a little bit of a it was a little bit of a topsy-turvy kind of thing trying to get here because I went out and I did an activity with my wife and my daughter and a friend of ours earlier this morning. We went out and did like this kind of like live like city scavenger hunt with Alice in Wonderland. That was a really intriguing and fun thing. We actually did it in about an hour and 15 minutes, which considering it's an all-day event, I think we did pretty well. I think currently we're still ranked in the top 10 out of 60 participating teams. So went out this morning and had some fun. It was a really good time. Weather was a little bleak though. It was kind of sprinkling and drizzling here. Sorry. So it was a little bit murky, a little bit of a gray day, but hopefully I can brighten the weather up, brighten everybody's mood up as we talk today about some football here. So obviously, before we kind of get into everything, I just kind of want to do a little breakdown about some other stuff that's going in the NFL before we go into all the topics. Obviously, we know that the NFC and AFC conference championship games are coming up, which those are huge games. Those are going to determine who goes to the Super Bowl. I'm just going to honestly put it out there. I honestly think, in my opinion, we're going to probably see a Bengals 49ers Super Bowl this year. I like the Bengals offense. I really do. Plus, on top of that, Joe Burrow has had freaking Patrick Mahomes' number the last couple of times, so I'm pretty confident that Joe Burrow is going to probably have it again. Could be wrong, but I'm pretty confident with the Bengals winning. And when it comes to the 49ers and the Eagles, I mean, Brock Purdy, he's been lighting it up as of late. That defense for the 49ers is just absolutely suffocating. And on top of that, I don't know how Jalen Hurts feels or arrives in the whole concept of being in the conference championship game. He and Brock Purdy are kind of on the same level there. But we'll see what happens. I'd like to hear what everybody's thoughts are post-stream or in-stream, what they think. Who do they think goes to the Super Bowl? Who do they think wins the conference championship games? Let me know what your thoughts are. Like I said, I believe it's going to be a Bengals 49ers Super Bowl this year. That's my thought. But anyway, having talked about the conference championship game, the Super Bowl that's coming up here, I also wanted to kind of briefly talk about the Detroit Lions in terms of news, in terms of things that's going on right now. Obviously, one of the things I'd like to talk about is that the Lions are officially, according to Dan Campbell and a couple of other sources that have come out, they're officially putting in new monofilament turf at both their practice facility in Allen Park and also at Ford Field. So that's good because I know there are a lot of people that have been upset with the fact that the Lions had that slit fit turf or whatever the thunder it was called. So now getting that monofilament turf, which is supposed to be a lot better for the players' health and for potentially limiting those non-contact injuries, such as what caused Tracy Walker to miss the majority of his season this year with an Achilles tear. I'm actually looking forward to potentially seeing what impact that turf change will actually have on the Lions' health overall for the remainder. Well, not for the remainder, but for the, you know what I'm talking about. You guys, I'm talking about for going into next season. That's what I'm talking about, is how the injuries will either drop, go up, maybe stay the same. I don't know with the new turf that they're putting in. We got ourselves a couple of comments here. Patty Grimes says, "What's up? Not much, Patty. Just glad that you're joining us for the show." Casey says, "Thanks for the stream. Don't care about the Super Bowl. Would prefer an AFC team to win it, though. Can't stand Philly or the 49ers. I have to agree with you on that. I can't stand Philly or the 49ers because Philly fans are just absolutely outrageous. Like, Philly fans are almost as bad as Dallas fans. I'll be honest. Like, Philly fans, like, it's not necessarily that they're cocky. It's just that Philly fans just have this vibe about them. They just have this outrageous attitude about their team. It's like if you ever go to a Philadelphia Eagles game or you talk to a Philadelphia Eagles fan, they will literally just kind of pound you into submission, like just talking about how their team is this like storied franchise, which it is. Philadelphia has a very storied franchise with the Eagles, but it's just like, dude, it's like Eagles fans they're just a breed all unto themselves. And then with the 49ers, it's just like, dude, the 49ers, you guys have won so many Super Bowls. You guys have so many championships. It's like, let somebody else win. honestly, if the Super Bowl matchup is what I think actually happens with the Bengals and the 49ers, I actually want Joe Burrow and the Bengals to win. I really do. Like, Joe Burrow and the Bengals are secretly kind of becoming my second favorite team because I like Joe Burrow. I like him as a quarterback. I like what the Bengals have done over the last couple of years. I truly think that the Lions can kind of do, not necessarily mimic, but they can kind of do the exact same thing that the Bengals have done in being able to turn around their fortunes relatively quickly. So we'll see what happens there. I'm still very much hopeful. I'm still very much believing that the Lions can make that fast turnaround. Well, fast in the sense within 3 years. Patty Grimes says, I think the Lions could take out one of the NFC teams. I'll say this right now. If we were going up against the Eagles, I think we could definitely take them on. I think we could actually beat them. Remember, in the very first week of the year, the Lions only lost by 3 points to the Philadelphia Eagles. We lost by 3 stinking points to the Philadelphia Eagles. I guarantee you, if we were in that situation that the 49ers are in right now, I truly, honestly believe that we could give the Philadelphia Eagles a run for their money and we could potentially beat them. I really do. I have no doubt about that in my mind because we nearly did it in week 1. And this team at the end of the year, it was a lot better team than what it was at the beginning of the year. J. Carrusen 71 says Dallas fans fight each other, win or lose. Oh, Dallas fans are just absolutely horrendous. Like, I don't normally agree with Stephen A. Smith a lot, but Stephen A. Smith hit the nail on the head. He's like, in a nuclear holocaust, 3 things are surviving. And one of them is a Dallas fan. And it's like, dude, he's absolutely right because one of them is gonna survive and they're just going to do what they normally do. And they're just going to whine, cry, and complain about how Dallas is not winning or whatever else. Like, Dallas fans are just beyond toxic. They think their team can do no wrong. They think every year their team's going to win the Super Bowl, and it never ends. And it's like, dude, it's like, as long as Jerry Jones continues to be the owner, you guys are never going to win a Super Bowl because all the money that the Cowboys have pumped in every single year to all of these superstars, Ezekiel Elliott, Dak Prescott. Now you have this new round of freaking guys they're bringing in, Micah Parsons, freaking CeeDee Lamb, Diggs. It's like, dude, for as much money as they pump into all of these stars, they have very, very little to actually show for it. There was a meme I actually saw not that long ago talking about it, and they said that the 1 star was not necessarily a team, the team's logo. It was a ranking, 1 star out of 5, because that's just how pathetic the Cowboys have been over the last 20-something years. For all the talent, for all the stardom, for all of the hype and pomp and circumstance, they have nothing to show for it. Every single year, we hear it from every stinking Cowboy fan. We're going to the Super Bowl, baby. We're going to the Super Bowl. And it's like, you all don't even get close to a Super Bowl. In fact, this year was the closest they ever got because they won a playoff game. They got to the division, and they were only down by 7 points. That's the closest that Dallas has gotten to even getting close to competing for a Super Bowl since the triplets were there with Troy Aikman, Michael Irvin, and Emmitt Smith. That's the closest they've gotten, which, if you think about it, for as much money as Dallas has at its disposal and as much stardom and as much hype as they have, that's rather pathetic. But this is not talking about the Dallas Cowboys. This is about the Detroit Lions. Paul Martin says, what's up, David? Not much, man. Just glad that you're in the stream. Here's Johnny says, was the 49ers fans as an adopted team back when the catch happened versus Dallas? I mean, 1980s and 90s, that was when the 49ers were at their height as being one of the most popular teams in the NFL. You had Joe Montana, you had Jerry Rice, you had Roger Craig in there. Deion Sanders was in and out for a little bit. Like, dude, the 49ers were just an awesome team. They were an awesome team. They had a lot of hype around them. They had really great players, 2 of the best quarterbacks to ever play between Young and Montana. It was just like, dude, it was a great time to be a Niners fan in the 80s and 90s. Just absolutely great time. Here's Johnny also says, like the Eagles with Terrell Owens and the big guy, Andy Reid. Yeah, they were a good team when they had Terrell Owens and Andy Reid was the coach. The only problem was Terrell Owens could never get along with Donovan McNabb, and that was kind of like the downfall of that because shortly thereafter, kind of the whole Eagles, like fly Eagles fly thing kind of fell apart until like Doug Peterson and now the current Eagles organization they have kind of came onto the scene. Patty Grimes says, the Cowboys haven't won a Super Bowl since I've been married. They haven't won a Super Bowl since I was born. Let's just put it that way. But again, not really going to talk about the Cowboys. Don't really care about the Cowboys. Can't stand the Cowboys. And I know there's a lot of Lions fans that can't stand the Cowboys too because The Cowboys kind of stole a playoff victory against us with the no pass interference call. Not going to necessarily that they paid off the refs, but it's very interesting how we went to their home stadium and that call was made, and then the Cowboys won that game. Just wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Patty Grimes says it might be the Reed Bowl, Philly versus Kansas City. That would be a very interesting one. The two teams that Andy Reid has coached over the longevity of his career. Formerly the Philadelphia Eagles and now the Kansas City Chiefs. That would be an interesting one there. The line, the storyline kind of writes itself there. Augustus St. Troy says, greetings from the planet of Detroit. Greetings, my friend. So, okay, folks, today's episode, we're going to be talking about some stuff that's kind of going around and some other stuff that not necessarily is being talked about in the media. The first thing I want to talk about is, y'all know that I'm a Jared Goff fan. I have made no attempt to hide this. However, though, now that it has been made abundantly clear by Brad Holmes and by Dan Campbell that Jared Goff is the guy, I thought it would be kind of intriguing and a little bit fun to kind of take a look at some other quarterbacks. And one of the quarterbacks that I really want to take a look at is a quarterback that was on a playoff team, a quarterback that was supposed to go to the Super Bowl, a Super Bowl contending team, and a quarterback that's considered one of the top 3 quarterbacks in the league. If y'all don't know who I'm referring to, it's Josh Allen, the quarterback of the Buffalo Bills. Now, why am I talking about Josh Allen in retrospect with Jared Goff? Well, here's the reason why. Like I said, number one, Josh Allen is considered arguably one of the best quarterbacks in the league right now. He's arguably somewhere within that top 3 mark between Josh Allen, between Joe Burrow, and between Patrick Mahomes. He's in there. So if you think about it, Josh Allen should be one of the best quarterbacks in the league, but it's kind of ironic that Josh Allen now has had the year that he's had, and yet there are a lot of people out there now that are now starting to make rumblings. They're starting to have these little like swirls going around about talking about part of the problem with the Bills is that Josh Allen can't seem to get them over the hump. And one of the reasons they're talking about it is because of the fact that Josh Allen is starting to have issues with the whole turnover problem. He's regressing. He's not progressing. So I thought, okay, that's a rather interesting topic because, hey, think about it here. Lions fans know that Jared Goff at one point was considered one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Like, come on now. Jared Goff went toe-to-toe with Patrick Mahomes on Monday Night Football and won. Yet, Jared Goff fell from grace. He fell from that top shelf and then got unceremoniously shipped out here to Detroit. And now Jared Goff has resurrected his career here in Detroit. So I was like, okay, let's talk about a comparison here over the last 2 years from when Jared Goff got traded to Detroit and taking a look at what Josh Allen has done over the last 2 years, because arguably over the last 2 years, the Buffalo Bills and Josh Allen have been considered Super Bowl contending teams. It's been considered that. Like they are always, every year, considered a Super Bowl contending team. And Josh Allen is prime facto number one reason why the Buffalo Bills are considered a Super Bowl contending team. So I decided to do some statistical breakdowns here because you all know I like my stats. So here's the first thing. If you go to Football Outsiders, they have how should I put this? They have a PowerPoint, or not a PowerPoint, sorry. They have a chart where they have various rankings for different categories. And the one ranking everyone's familiar with is Dover ranking. Well, what Dover ranking simply means is how well you played in comparison to the other quarterbacks in the league. How much better you played. If you have a positive Dover ranking or Dover percentage, that meant that you played better than X amount of quarterbacks in retrospect to that percentage. If you have a negative ranking, that meant you played worse than other quarterbacks in terms of that percentage in comparison to the average. Y'all want to know where Josh Allen and Jared Goff rank? You're actually going to be surprised. Jared Goff was the 4th best quarterback in terms of Dover ranking this year. Josh Allen was ranked number 5. So you had Jared Goff number 4, Josh Allen number 5. But here's the thing. It doesn't sound like there's that big of a difference because there's just a one difference ranking there between Josh Allen and Jared Goff. But look at the difference in percentage. Take a look at the difference in percentage. You want to know what Jared Goff's percentage was? 24.8%. That meant on average, he was playing better than 24.8% of all other quarterbacks in the league. You want to know what Josh Allen's was? 15.9%. That is a near 10% difference between Jared Goff at number 4 and Josh Allen at number 5. You're talking about one of the best quarterbacks, quote unquote, in the league in Josh Allen, and Jared Goff was outplaying him to the tune of nearly 10% in terms of Dover rankings. That absolutely floored me. I was like, you're talking about a guy who's considered a Super Bowl contending quarterback. He's considered a top 3 quarterback in the league, and Jared Goff literally buried him with the Dover rankings. But wait a minute, I'm not done yet. I then decided to take a look at just the generic stats, pass completions, passing yards, quarterback rating, that stuff. It's actually kind of intriguing when you take a look at the stats over the last 2 years between Josh Allen and Jared Goff. I'm just going to bring them up here really quickly. This is Josh Allen's stats over the last 2 seasons when the Buffalo Bills have been considered a Super Bowl contending team, right? Josh Allen, 768 completions to 1,213 pass attempts, which comes out to a 63.3 completion percentage rate. He has accumulated 8,690 yards, 71 touchdowns to 29 interceptions for a 94.24 passer rating. He has accumulated 24 wins and 9 losses. That's Josh Allen as far as the statistics go. Now, let's take a look at Jared Goff, shall we? Jared Goff over the last 2 years with the Detroit Lions, mind you, a team that nobody has considered a Super Bowl competing team. Jared Goff, 714 completions to 1,081 attempts for a 66 completion percentage rate. 7,683 yards, 48 touchdowns to 15 interceptions, 95.76 passer rating to 11 wins, 18 losses, and 1 tie. Now, here's the thing. Obviously, when you take a look at those numbers, there are a couple of things that are going to jump out right away. Number one, Josh Allen has significantly more passing touchdowns. But let's understand something here. Josh Allen is in a system where passing the ball is the primary form of the offense. Jared Goff is not. The offense for the Lions is very much a balanced offense. And when you consider the offense this year, we did a lot more running the ball than what we have for quite a while. That's number one. But the number 2 thing you need to pay attention to there is the difference in turnovers. Freaking Jared Goff has half the turnovers that Josh Allen has. Josh Allen has almost double the turnovers to Jared Goff. He has 29 interceptions in 2 years to Jared Goff's 15 in 2 years. Absolutely crazy. You have to consider that. You have to realistically consider that that's a problem. Because when you take a look at it, the difference in passing yards is only about 1,000 yards difference. That's not a big difference considering those 2 quarterbacks, especially considering the fact that Jared Goff sat out, 3 or 4 games last year? And he's only 1,000 yards short? And then you got to take a look at the fact that Jared Goff actually has a better passer rating of a whole point over Josh Allen. And then let's understand something else here. You want to take a look at something else that's really peculiar about this whole situation? Think about this one for a minute. Josh Allen gets paid annually $43 million, according to various sources that I've looked at. That's what his annual salary is, about $43 million a year. And when you take a look at that and you compare it to what Jared Goff is making, Jared Goff makes about $33.5 million. So in essence, Josh Allen is getting paid almost $10 million more a year annually, but yet Jared Goff is actually a more efficient quarterback than what Josh Allen is. And when you take a look at the stats from this year, Jared Goff had more passing touchdowns. No, he didn't have more passing touchdowns. Sorry. He had less interceptions. He had more passing yards, and he had a better passer rating this year. So when I take a look at people wanting to say that Jared Goff is not a good quarterback, but yet he's clearly outperforming one of the top 3 quarterbacks in the league by most consensus analysts, that right there is a problem in my book. It's like we have people out there that still want to talk about in these mock drafts about potentially drafting a quarterback high. I've seen it on certain analysts or certain sites, especially when we're talking about Woodward Sports. There are still people out there that would advocate drafting a quarterback in the first round to sit behind Jared Goff rather than fixing the defense. It makes absolutely no sense. You're telling me you want to draft a quarterback when the defense was ranked 32nd overall on the year, but yet you've got a quarterback in Jared Goff who performed better than Josh Allen this year in terms of passer rating, in terms of passing yards, and having less interceptions, and over the last 2 years stacks up better in terms of efficiency than Josh Allen, and he's being paid $10 million less. Quarterback's not the problem here, folks. The defense is the problem. Fix the defense. But anyway, that's that session there. Got myself onto a long tangent. Let's take a look, see what we got here for some comments. Here's Johnny says the Lions should get a legit backup. Absolutely. Absolutely, Johnny. I totally agree with you. The Lions need to get a legit backup. I do not believe for a second that Nate Sudfeld is the Lions' backup of the future. I believe, honestly, in my heart of hearts, that what the Lions are going to do is two things this offseason in regards to quarterback. They're going to sign a veteran quarterback in free agency, a decent one. I'm not saying they're going to open up the purse strings and, go crazy, but they're going to sign a veteran quarterback, one that's better than Sudfeld, most likely. And then in the later rounds, probably like round 4, 5, 6, something like that, they're going to they're going to draft a developmental quarterback to sit behind both Jared Goff and that veteran backup. That's my opinion. Here's Johnny says Goff's turnovers went down after the Hockenson trade. Cousins went up. Absolutely. It's kind of an interesting conundrum, really, that with TJ Hockenson, he gets traded from the Lions. And what happens? Not only does Goff's interceptions go down, what also goes up? The production from our backup tight ends. We got more production out of our backup tight ends, namely Brock Wright and Shane Zylstra, than when TJ Hockenson was here. And furthermore, I'd be willing to bet, I didn't find the stats out on this, but somebody can look this up later. I'd be willing to bet that our tight ends had better production as far as scoring than TJ Hockenson did when he got traded to the Vikings. You're talking about a guy that wanted to command over $10 million salary for a tight end position, which would be top 5 money, and yet we're getting better production from guys that are getting paid less than $1 million by comparison. That's absolutely nuts. Lions Fan Express says, what's up, guys? Not much, man. How's it going? Nice to see you in the stream. Patty Grimes says, I like Jake, is that Jake Haener and Jalen Hall as late-round quarterbacks? Those guys are good. Another quarterback you guys should look at is this guy. He's from Division II ball. His name is called, I think, Tyson Badgett. He has a lot of the developmental traits that you're looking for in quarterback. I would take a look at him. I like him a lot. Here's Johnny says, haven't studied those quarterbacks at Patty Grimes. Offseason is heating up. Absolutely. I would highly recommend to everybody to start taking a look at positions that the Lions need. Defensive line would definitely be one, especially the interior defensive line. Linebacker is another. Cornerback is another. I would also look at interior offensive line, particularly right guard. And it wouldn't also hurt to potentially look at developmental tight ends either. Patty Grimes says the Fresno State quarterback and the BYU quarterback. Patty Grimes says Tyler McKee. Tyler McKee is another good option. If I recall correctly, isn't he from Stanford, Patty? I believe he's from Stanford. Hatman says, I like Goff, and I think we need to get a young quarterback in like the 4th and 5th round. Absolutely. Absolutely. I have not been against the Lions drafting a backup developmental quarterback for learning behind Jared Goff as far as developing into a solid backup quarterback. But I don't think for a second that people that want to tell me, hey, the Lions need to draft a quarterback in the top 2-3 rounds because we need to find a guy that can take over for Goff in 2 years, that makes absolutely no sense. It literally makes no sense. Why would you draft a guy to take over for Jared Goff when, number one, Jared Goff is in the prime of his career? Number two, by today's market standards, his contract is a steal. And number three, Jared Goff and Brad Holmes have got a history together. There is a pretty good chance that Jared Goff is going to rework a contract with Brad Holmes, and he's going to want less than market value. Because every single player that we have talked about, either on this show or on my private channel, Detroit Lions Forum, they have wanted to take less money to come back to Detroit because they realize that it's not about the money. It's about making sure you keep the right guys together. And if that means you take a little less money, that's what you do. And again, I remind you all what Jared Goff said at the very beginning of this year. He said, I want to win. There's only one other quarterback that I can think of in recent memory that has said that. Not just, like Aaron Rodgers. I think I could win MVP again in the right circumstances. Or, you know what? I just want to win a Super Bowl. No. Jared Goff didn't say, I just want to win a Super Bowl. Or, you know what? I want to win personal accolades. He just said, I want to win, period. Left it at that. I want to win. The only other quarterback that I've ever heard say that is the GOAT, Tom Brady, which that tells me right there that what Jared Goff is more interested in is winning and not making his personal bank account much fatter. Just saying. Patty Grimes also says Dorian Thompson-Robinson. I believe he's from UCLA, if I'm correct. Gun Guy says, just wait for the Manning boy. I would really like to get my hands on Archie Manning Jr. in like 4 or 5 years. He would be optimal, in my opinion. Draft him, have him sit a year behind Jared Goff, learn the ropes, and then, hey, you know what? When Jared Goff's like 34, 35 years old, have him replace Jared Goff, and now you've got yourself your next quarterback for the next 10, 12, 14 years. That would be my optimal situation right there. That would be optimal, in my opinion. Patty Grimes says, I'm not against getting a young QB, but not in the first round when you need defensive help so bad. Absolutely. Absolutely. I cannot for the life of me understand why Woodward Sports has pushed this narrative, this false narrative, I might say, of constantly saying, hey, the Lions need to draft a quarterback. The Lions need to consider drafting a quarterback in the top round. Like, personally, I don't get that. I have never understood why Woodward has been so persistent about getting rid of Jared Goff. It literally makes absolutely no sense, in my opinion. It's like that is the absolute opposite of what common sense would dictate. Your defense finished number 32, but instead of fixing the defense and adding more talent to actually, make the defense better, let's instead draft an offensive playmaker, which is not going to help the defense in any sense of the word. And if anything, he's going to sit on the bench for a year or two, collecting a paycheck, doing nothing. That to me makes absolutely no sense. To put it in a word, it's asinine. It's ridiculously asinine. There's no logical sense in that whole plan at all. Absolutely none. Anonymous Flow has a double no. I don't know who or what in reference that's to. Silent says, have I seen the PFF ranking? It just shows how biased PFF is. I have not seen it myself, but again, there's a reason why I don't really deal with PFF all that much, because I know how biased they are. PFF is very biased because they will give the better rankings to teams that are better as far as record or to the stars. Think about it. When you take a look at some of the games that Josh Allen had this year, some of his games were absolutely putrid. But his rankings are much higher than Jared Goff. His rankings are much higher than other quarterbacks that with your own eyeballs, if you were watching television, you could tell very, very clearly who was the better quarterback. And I've never understood that. PFF wants to say, we are pioneers. We base everything off of the statistics. We base everything off of these in-depth algorithms. Your algorithms don't mean or amount to a bucket of warm spit if they're clearly biased. That's why I don't use PFF all that often, because they are clearly a biased organization that goes with making sure that the stars are given the star treatment, and those that aren't considered stars, they are usually ranked much lower. Jared Goff is not ranked 20th. I just saw you put that up there, Silent. Jared Goff is not the 20th best quarterback in this league. Not even close. That's almost as bad as when PFN, Pro Football Network, said that Jared Goff was the 22nd best quarterback in the league. That's absolutely ludicrous. That's crazy. Anybody with a brainstem could tell you that Jared Goff was easily a top 10 quarterback this year. No doubt about it. Even freaking the NFL Network, NFL.com, for their power rankings at the end of the year, they had Jared Goff ranked 8th. When, for the entirety of the year, they pretty much had Jared Goff ranked no more than number 15 and number 24. So if NFL.com, the actual website of the National Football League, will actually rank Jared Goff in the top 10, when I see PFF and PFN want to put Jared Goff in that 20 range, it's laughable. It's downright, it's like I'm rolling on the floor laughing. It's like, dude, you show just the sheer incompetence of how bad of an algorithm site you are. But anyway, Patty Grimes says, I've been a Lions fan since 1988, been sick of defense not being able to stop anyone. Well, there have been times where the defense has been good. What was it? 2014, we had the second best defense in the NFL. That was probably the best defense the Lions have had to date. We've also had some good players along the way, not necessarily top 10 defenses, but we've had some good defensive players. So it would actually be nice if we had both a good offense and a good defense get paired together, ones that could, actually spank teams to where we could actually just turn on the game and be like, hey, rather than, wondering what's going to happen in the last 4 minutes of the game, hey, by the fourth quarter, the game's already been decided. Like, I'll be honest, I would prefer games like the Cardinals game in 2021 or, the Jaguars game this year when by freaking the third quarter, the game was over. We didn't have to worry. Let's see here. Here's Johnny says, people feel Goff is going to command a big contract in 2 years. People want to feel that, but I'm telling you this right now. I have been right about Jared Goff every single step of the way since I became a podcaster. I was right when I said that the Lions did not consider him a bridge quarterback. They do not consider him as a bridge quarterback. I said that Jared Goff was going to finish as a top 10 quarterback this year. Jared Goff finished as a top 10 quarterback this year. I said that Jared Goff was going to be one of the best quarterbacks this year. That's what happened. I have been right about Jared Goff every flipping step of the way. And I'm telling you this right now. Even in 2 years, Jared Goff is probably going to ask for a salary of about $40 million. Now, some people might think that's asking too much, but you have to consider the market value of quarterbacks right now. Quarterbacks are just at a base minimum right now, almost getting paid $40 million. In 2 years, $40 million will be the base minimum. Like, I just seriously, I don't understand why people balk at that $40 million contract option anymore. It's like, dude, $40 million now is a drop in a bucket, especially when you consider the fact that the salary cap goes up $10 million or so every stinking year. In 2 years, the salary cap will be $20 million more than what it is this year. And if you consider the fact that, like I said, Jared Goff and Brad Holmes have chemistry together, I guarantee you, Jared Goff's not going to freaking ring the Lions over a barrel and be like, hey, I want the biggest contract in the NFL. He's not going to do that. I just don't see it happening. Jared Goff is going to work with the Lions to make sure that the Lions have the best chance to winning. He knows that the best way to do that is to not pull an Aaron Rodgers. Silence says, oh, I know that, but PFF feels otherwise. Well, PFF don't know nothing. Lions Mania says, hey, what's going on? Not much, man. We're just talking some Lions football. So far, we've been talking a lot about Jared Goff, but I'm trying to move into the next topic. Lion King says, yo, will you mock? Yes, I will mock. I will do mock drafts. I don't like doing them particularly early because there's a lot of, how should I say it? There's a lot of conundrums. There's a lot of different aspects and different things that can change over the course of the year. But I do plan on not only doing mocks on here eventually, as far as doing a live mock, and so that way you guys can actually see my computer screen when I actually am doing them. I'm thinking about maybe doing that next month. I will also do live mocks on my private channel, Detroit Lions Forum, as far as like putting up what I think would be the most optimal drafts and presenting them. Trust me, I will do mock drafts. I will do mock drafts. Don't worry about that. I would be literally foolish not to do mock drafts, especially when that's all anybody's talking about right now is mock drafts. Here's Johnny says, Here at David, Lions fans deserve some big wins. Absolutely. We deserve not just some big wins. We deserve some wins where it's just like, dude, the NFL can't help but take notice. Silent says, I don't see Goff asking for more than $40 million. I totally agree with you. I don't see it happening either. Lions Mania says, if we start winning consistently with Goff, he will want an increase in pay. Maybe. Again, I don't see Goff being that greedy. I just don't see Goff being that way. Goff does not strike me as a greedy individual. Goff strikes me as a guy that will do his job and he will do whatever it takes to win, much like Tom Brady. And what has Tom Brady been known for over the years? Restructuring his contracts and taking pay cuts. Well, what did Jared Goff do as soon as he got to Detroit? He restructured his contract. That's not something that a lot of quarterbacks do. In fact, what did the Packers have to do for Aaron Rodgers just to get him back last year? They had to dole out a whole bunch of new money just to get him back. So when people want to talk about, oh, well, I think Jared Goff is going to want more money. Yeah, he's going to want some more money. He's going to want a little bit more, but I don't think Jared Goff's going to go to Brad Holmes and say, I demand a $55, $60 million contract. I don't see that happening. $40 million is about as maximum as I think is he's going to actually want. Lions Mania says, I think we should sign James Bradberry in free agency. Lions Mania, are you referring to the cornerback from the Eagles? Is that who you're referring to? If I got my information correctly, let me know. If not, please also let me know. Lion King says, we will have a whale splash or plop plop minnow splash. I mean, I honestly think the next year, I think the Lions are going to make a humongous splash in terms of what they're going to do in the NFL. Like, I seriously believe that the NFL and the NFC is going to feel just how much the Lions have grown in the year. Like, absolutely. Here's Johnny says, Lions can win with Goff. Hashtag build the team. 100% with you. 100% with you, Johnny. 100% with you. Patty Grimes says, if Goff and the Lions win playoff games, pay the man. Absolutely. Think about it this way. For all those that are out there. Who was the last quarterback that won the Detroit Lions a playoff game? Oh, yeah, that's right. That was in 1991. His name was Eric Kramer. If Jared Goff wins you a playoff game, you paid a man. Period. You just pretty much say, here's a blank check. Tell us how much you want. Silent says, pounding the table for Witherspoon at 6 and Bijan Robinson at 18. If he's not there, then Drew Sanders. We're actually going to talk about that here in a minute, Silent. Joseph Austin says, everybody pays their QB. Goff has earned his money. Absolutely. Absolutely. Lions Mania tells me that, yes, I am correct, and he is a good player. Yes, he is a good player. He is a very good player. I would have no problem if the Lions wanted to potentially bring in James Bradberry. But we're going to actually talk about some other stuff here really quickly. D777 Max says, Mr. Poole, you here? Patty Grimes says, multiple playoff games. Okay. So here's the thing, folks. As I said in the description of this show before I started, we're also going to talk about free agents. Now, when I say free agents, I'm specifically talking about Lions free agents. And Lion King says I'm talking about free agent splash. Now, here's the thing. I'm going to say this right now, Lion King. I think that if the Lions do make a splash, they're going to make one big splash. I've said this before. Brad Holmes said that they weren't going to alter how they go about their free agents and talent evaluation. However, though, I do think there could be room potentially for the Lions to make one big-time free agent splash. And if I'm taking the choice, just because of how the draft board might potentially pan out, I think the best free agent splash that the Lions should go after would be Darren Payne from the Washington Commanders. He would be a perfect fit for what the Lions need. We need somebody in the middle of the defensive line who could plug up the middle, make sure the running lanes are taken care of, and also has the ability to get after the quarterback. Darren Payne checks off all three of those boxes. He would be a big splash free agent signing. He would be expensive, but there is a way that the Lions could potentially get him, and here's how they could do it. Number one, you either restructure or you release Big V. I like Big V as a guard, but I don't like how much he's getting paid. And after missing out the entirety of the year with a back injury we don't know if he's going to be able to recover from, I have problems with that. Number two, get rid of Charles Harris. Charles Harris did absolutely nothing this year. It's obvious that James Houston is a better fit for this defense. Charles Harris has become expendable. Get rid of him. And then the next guy I would get rid of, that would be a perfect reason on why I bring in Darren Payne, get rid of Michael Brockers. That dude has been an absolute waste of space for the Detroit Lions over 2 years. I get the veteran leadership. I get the fact that he's a captain, blah, 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 blah. I get all that. But it's very clearly obvious that the money that the Lions are paying him is way too dang much because he's not producing on the field. Take that money you're paying Michael Brockers and put it in Darren Payne's wallet and bring him in. That would make a lot more sense in my opinion. So that would be the answer to your question, Lion King, as far as the one splash signing that I would see the Lions doing. Shadow Viper 619 says, here late, but love the show. Can't wait to hear the latest news and ideas. Well, you just stay in there, Shadow Viper. They're coming. I'm just trying to stay up with all these comments. You guys are absolutely doing a great job. We're up to 25 viewers. Make sure you guys hit that like button. Make sure you guys hit the subscriber button. Love that you guys are showing up today. Absolutely makes me happy. Joseph Ostin says, I mock Witherspoon and Beyond often at Silent. We're going to talk about that here in a minute. D77 Max says the Lions are going to rule this coming season because they're in the perfect spot to establish a dynasty with exceptional players. I 100% agree with you, D777 Mac, because you talk about the fact that the Lions have 2 first-round draft picks. They have 2 second-round draft picks, and you're talking about a defense that went to top 10 in terms of points per game at the end of the year. They finished the year over the last 10 games of the season, averaging only giving up 18.5 points, and you have a top 5 offense with a top 10 quarterback with your offensive coordinator coming back. The sky is the limit for this Lions offense and for this Lions team, especially when you consider the fact that Aaron Rodgers just might be leaving the division to go play for the New York Jets. That's not established. That's just a rumor, but it's a rumor that I would happily envision and happily enjoy with, because I would love it if Aaron Rodgers was not in the NFC North anymore. Just saying. Here's Johnny says, Payne or move up to get Carter from Georgia at DL. Those would be 2 nice options. The moving up, I'm not necessarily as keen on, because moving up, you're going to have to give up draft capital, and I'm not particularly keen on it. But if Brad Holmes could swing it, I'm fine with it. Lion King says, your thoughts on Jalen Ramsey in our secondary? He led on run stopping at cornerback in 2022. Okay, so here's the thing, Lion King. I have literally seen so many videos, even some from this channel, Syndicate Sports Detroit, that have talked about Jalen Ramsey and bringing him in. I have not watched them, so I'm not going to speak on them. I'm just going to simply offer my viewpoint here. What are the pros of bringing in Jalen Ramsey? Here are the pros. Number 1, he is a established, solid, very good cornerback who is a ball hawk, and he's not afraid to tackle. That definitely fits what this defense is all about. Aggressive, tackling, ball hawking cornerbacks. That fits exactly what this defense is all about at cornerback. There's just one problem. Number 1, Jalen Ramsey is going to want way too much money. He already is one of the top paid salaried players for the Rams. So unless he restructured his contract, that's problem number 1. Problem number 2, Jalen Ramsey is getting near 30 years old. And the problem with cornerbacks, just like wide receivers and running backs, is when they start creeping around that 30-year mark, they start declining in play. Now, am I saying that's going to happen to Jalen Ramsey? No, I'm not saying that's going to happen to him. But the odds are very much stacked against him. You don't see a whole lot of skill players, wide receivers, running backs, cornerbacks, that have longevity after they hit the 30-year mark. The last running back I can think of that had longevity like that was Adrian Peterson, because he kept going until he was like 36, 37 years old. But I don't know if Jalen Ramsey can do that. And for the amount of money he's going to command, that is a huge risk investment. I'm not saying that I wouldn't mind it, but the finances is something that's really offsetting for me. Now, if he'd be willing to restructure, take less money, I'm all for it. But I think that the Lions would have a better route going into the draft and drafting a guy that would be a much better fit. Now, with that being said, I'm going to take a look at these last couple of comments here, and then I'm going to get into what I was talking about with the free agents. Silent says, Payne would absolutely be a perfect fit. They need to bring back Williams, Brown, Kaminsky, and maybe Chark, but I wouldn't give him a raise without an incentive. Dan M., I totally agree with you, but I'm not going to say what you just said just for the point of the show. Python Knight says, run stopping isn't our biggest problem. It's more of our cornerback pass stopping, in my opinion. Very good opinion. Very good point, in my opinion. Here's Johnny says, Panthers game? They ran through the Lions D-line. Facts. Silent says, Payne is a young building block that plays in the trenches, something MCDC Holmes prioritizes. I would also like to see them bring in Patrick Peterson. Patrick Peterson's old. Like, he's really, really old. Like, if he came in as a consultant or as a coach, wouldn't have a problem with it. But as a player, that might be a little bit of a different story. D777 Max says, your opinion matters here in the Syndicate Sports Detroit. Give him a 1-year contract with a bonus attached to when they make the playoffs. I don't know if Jalen Ramsey would go for that. Like, I don't know if he would take that kind of a pay cut. I mean, that would be a lot of money he'd be leaving on the table. That's just my opinion. Again, I would love to bring Jalen Ramsey in if the finances would work. I just don't see how that's going to happen. Hatter's House 710 says build through the draft 100%. That is a definite good opinion, and I like it. Jeff Berg says no big free agency signing splashes until 2024. Patty Grimes says, what if the Lions draft 2 corners early in the draft? Lion King also says Lion King then says we don't need all rookies in the secondary. We were historically bad in defense. And Silence says that Ramsey isn't going to take a pay cut. Okay, here's the thing, folks. I love the comments. I really, really do. I really do. Here's what I'm going to say to kind of answer this next segment really, really quickly as far as free agents. Here's what I would do. And when I'm talking about free agents, I'm not talking about free agents that are outside of the building, because I first and foremost don't know all the free agents that are going to be out there, because once the season is officially done as far as the playoffs, then we'll have a much better idea of what free agents we're going to be out there to potentially go after and nab. Here's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about free agents that the Lions have in the building. And in my opinion, there are 4 free agents that the Lions absolutely, under no circumstances, can let walk out the door and go to another team. And these are the free agents. Let me grab my paper really quickly. So these are the 4 free agents that the Lions absolutely, under no circumstance, can let walk out the door. Number 1, John Kaminsky. They cannot let John Kaminsky walk out the door. I know there's already been an article out there that's talked about it, but let's just talk about this from the practical standpoint and from my opinion. When John Kaminsky left the lineup because of that wrist injury before he got back, the defense was not the same. Once he came back, it was better than what it was. And especially once you start having Aiden Hutchinson moving from the 3-point stance to the 2-point stance, you started getting James Houston mixed in there. You started Malcolm Rodriguez getting better. Curry Joseph started to play better. John Kaminsky is an integral role to that defensive line. I'm absolutely astonished that the Lions were able to somehow pick him up on the waiver wire, which, again, I'm going to say this right now, even though nobody wants to talk about that 3-13-1 season, the fact that we finished 3-13-1 was the absolute primary reason why we were able to get John Kaminsky, because our waiver wire was still high enough from back in last season that we could pick him up. So absolutely, I totally 100% you don't want John Kaminsky to walk out the door. He absolutely needs to come back. And John Kaminsky has already said that he wants to come back. He wants to come back in perpetuity. He does not want to leave. Number 2 free agent is DJ Chark. DJ Chark, in my opinion, needs to come back. And here's the reason why. Number 1, first and foremost, DJ Chark was the 3rd leading wide receiver for the Detroit Lions this year. He was right behind Khalif Raymond. And obviously, Amon-Ra St. Brown was the leading wide receiver. Well, here's the thing. DJ Chark, at the last part of the year when his ankle is fully healthy and when he is developing that chemistry with Jared Goff, we got ourselves a deep threat. Well, here's the thing. Outside of DJ Chark, there's not much in the free agency pool for wide receivers right now. DJ Chark would be the best wide receiver in the free agency pool. But it's like, listen, with all of the progress that DJ Chark has put in with Jared Goff, the development, the work they were able to do, imagine that being amplified in the offseason when Goff invites out DJ Chark, Jameson Williams, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Josh Reynolds, the lot of them, to go out to throwing sessions. They further build upon that chemistry, and then you add a healthy, young Jameson Williams burner threat to go alongside DJ Chark. Can you imagine the absolute pandemonium that this Lions offense could put on defenses? The defenses could not cover both of them. We would be stretching the field laterally and vertically like freaking Lance Armstrong. The defenses could not cover everybody. So you want to bring back DJ Chark because he fulfills the offense's full true potential. He would allow the Lions offense to virtually do anything that they want. Jameson Williams is under contract, these 777 Mac. He's not going anywhere. He's under a 4-year contract, plus he has the 5th-year option because he was a first-round rookie. The next free agent they absolutely need to bring in, and you need to also bring this guy back, is Jamal Williams. Jamal Williams, you can't let him leave. Jamal Williams must come back because Jamal Williams is the heart and soul of this team. Jared Goff might be the leader of the offense, but Jamal Williams, he is the heart and soul of the team. You cannot let Jamal Williams walk out the door. Furthermore, a guy that breaks Barry Sanders' season rushing touchdown record, you can't let him walk out the door either. Pay the man. And again, Jamal Williams said he wants to come back. Pay the man. He is a perfect fit for this Lions ball club. his charisma, his quirky attitude, his leadership, he is a perfect fit for this team. Do not let Jamal Williams walk out the door under any circumstances. Absolutely none. The final guy that cannot under any circumstances walk out under, well, there are two guys I'm going to put in here. I said 4, but there are really 5, and this last one's an honorable mention because it's kind of a little bit different. The other free agent that you don't want to walk out the door is Deshaun Elliott. And here's the reason why. When we lost Tracy Walker, our defense on the back half was pretty much lost and leaderless for the first couple of games. But then Deshaun Elliott stepped up, and then he pretty much became that back half leader while Kirby Joseph was developing. Well, then what happened for that 1 or 2 games that Deshaun Elliott was gone? Kirby Joseph was then in charge, and the back half once again fell apart. Having Tracy Walker and Deshaun Elliott back there would be perfect because it would establish 2 veteran leaders back there. Number 1, it would further allow Kirby Joseph to develop. It just makes perfect sense. I understand that Deshaun Elliott has some injury concerns, but realistically, he only missed 2 games this year. I'm willing to live with that, especially if Tracy Walker comes back fully healthy. And like I said at the beginning of this stream, the Lions have changed out their field turf to monofilament from the slim fit turf. So for me, it's like you're improving the availability for your players by giving them the best turf possible. So for me, you have to bring back Deshaun Elliott in this list as well. Now, the honorable mention here, and the reason why he's an honorable mention is because technically he's not a free agent, but I don't want him walking away under any circumstances, is James Houston. And here's the reason why. James Houston technically got cut, so when he got re-signed, his contract is a little bit murky. If I recall correctly, it's a 1 or 2 year deal, but it's so very minimal that if he wanted to leave, he could leave technically. I don't want James Houston leaving for nothing. That's why he's an honorable mention. Do not let James Houston leave under any circumstances. The fact that you got a guy that gets 8 sacks in literally, and I say this again, literally 6 or 7 games, that's a special commodity you don't let walk away because that does not just come walking up on your doorstep every day. Python Knight said it was a 2-year deal, if I recall. I don't remember. I thought it was a 1-year deal. I know some people have said it's a 1-year deal. Some people have said it's a 2-year deal. Either way, if it's a 2-year deal, you pay the man. Make sure you sign him up for a long-term deal. Do not let him walk out the door. That's why I said honorable mention. We got ourselves a couple of comments here. Good Lord, there was quite a lot of them. MMS1346 said, would I consider Bijan Robinson at number 18? I'm just going to put this short and sweet because I have one more segment I want to get to. No. I would not consider Bijan Robinson at number 18 for one simple reason. The value of running backs has so greatly depreciated over the years that it makes no sense to draft a running back in the top round anymore. Because let's put this in perspective here. Most running backs, by the time they get to the end of their first contract, which whether it's for a first round pick or a second round pick, because it's 4 years, the only reason it's a 5-year deal is if you pick up the 5th-year option with the first round pick. Usually by the time that running back gets to the end of that fourth year of their contract, one of 2 things has happened usually. 1, they've gotten injured, which has decreased their value. Or 2, they have really done a lot and have increased their value, but then the clubs, the franchises have to ask themselves this question. Is it pertinent? Is it wise to invest all this money in this running back who are only going to potentially get another 2 or 3 more years out of before he starts slowing up because of age? Because like I said, once you start getting to that 30-year mark, they start slowing down. Instead, why not just draft his replacement in the draft and you don't have to spend nowhere near as much money? Because that is the nature of the running back position. You can literally go out and buy a dime a dozen, literally get another running back. Now, on special occasions, like as the case with King Henry or even with Jonathan Taylor, you want to hang on to those guys for a little bit longer. But those running backs are few and far between. It's more better of a business decision now for NFL teams to just simply say, hey, we're going to draft a running back in round 2, round 3. He's going to be our guy for the next couple of years. And then when he wants to get an extension, if he's not willing to work with us as far as money, we'll just go out and we'll just get somebody else. That's why I would say no to Bijan Robinson at number 18. D777 Max says Gonzalez is my pick. Patty Grimes says Lions draft Porter Jr. or Gonzalez. Jeff Berg says, I think the Lions draft 2 cornerbacks in this draft. Hatman agrees about keeping John Kaminsky. Here's Johnny says, the Kaminsky is my type of guy. D777 Max says, Chark is a must top 5 in the league. MMS1346 agrees on Kaminsky and Chark. D777 Max says, Goff and Chark love each other's gifts. Python Knight says, well, the problem with Chark is his consistent injuries he tends to keep getting. Yeah, but I will say this. Once he recovered from that ankle injury, he was a terror. He was a force to be reckoned with. Lion King says that the Bears are targeting Chark on Fort. He's not going to go to the Bears. He will not go to the Bears. I will personally guarantee that. Here's Johnny says, let the doctors have input on Chark's ankle. If good, bring him back. Let's see here. Hatman says Jamal Williams really needs to stay. I love the guy, and he fits perfectly with our team. Johnny says give Jamal a fully guaranteed first year, then 2 years with base plus incentives. He's earned it. Python Knight says this is a personal want, but I want Bugs and Anzalone back. Many selfish reasons. Bugs is a really good option, but again, if you bring back Darren Payne, you wouldn't need to bring back Isaiah Bugs unless you wanted a rotational piece. And again, Anzalone is a bit of a problem for me because of the fact that we very well might be drafting his replacement in the draft, which will lead into my next segment here in a few minutes. Patty Grimes says, I don't think it's necessary that they slow down. Necessarily that they slow down is that they get paid and they don't try as hard. See Ezekiel Elliott. Fair point. Lions Fan Express, if there is a QB needy team at 6, the Lions should trade down and get a cornerback or best defensive player available. Jeff Berg says, surprise cut, Romeo or Okudah? Oh, Romeo. Romeo would be the surprise cut. I don't see the Lions getting rid of Jeff Okudah. They've got 1 more year with him before they have to consider his 5th-year option. They're not going to cut him. Romeo would be the surprise cut. Now, let's talk about the players that I think that the Lions should look at potentially drafting. That we already know that there are certain players that obviously the Lions definitely should be looking at. Obviously, Jalen Carter is one. Brian Breesy is another. Like I said, the interior of the defensive line is something you need to pay attention to. But there are some other players that realistically I want people to start looking at, because after looking at them myself, reading scouting reports and doing a little bit of some in-depth film analysis, I was looking for the words. After looking at some of that, these are 4 players that I realistically think Lions fans should start paying attention to. Player number 1, I've seen his name in this chat a couple times, but Devin Witherspoon, the cornerback out of Illinois. That dude is literally an embodiment of Detroit Lions football and Dan Campbell right now. Witherspoon is for a cornerback, he is big, he is physical, he has no problem tackling, and he is a ball hawk. And need I remind you, Kirby Joseph came from Illinois in round 3. And, oh, that's right, Kirby Joseph got 4 interceptions this year. Could you imagine Kirby Joseph and Devin Witherspoon in the same team together? That would be a very, very formidable bunch of defensive backs, in my opinion. So that's player number 1. Because of his size, because of his aggressive nature, because of his willingness to tackle, and because of the connection he has with Kirby Joseph being from the same college, I would absolutely be fine with drafting Devin Witherspoon. Now, depending upon where he would fall, you could potentially get him at number 18. You could potentially also get him at the top of the 2nd round, depending upon how the draft board falls. But that's a guy that people should definitely pay attention to. Number 2, another cornerback, Christian Gonzalez Jr. out of Oregon. Gonzalez, is very big. He's very physical. And again, he has a good set of ball hawking skills on him. And again, the Lions have gone to Oregon within the last 2 years because we drafted Penei Sewell from Oregon back in 2021. And seeing as how Brad Holmes has a lot of scouting material from back in those days, because over there in LA, Oregon's not that far away, the Lions have actually got a lot of potential information over there still. So for me, Christian Gonzalez, once again, he fits what the Lions are looking for because we need another big-size cornerback. And on top of that, he's a ball hawk. And on top of that, he comes from a college that Brad Holmes has a lot of, information on. Joseph Ostin says, Witherspoon's size, 6 foot, 185 pounds. 6 foot, 185 pounds. You might think that's not big, Joseph, but he plays a lot bigger than his size. Go watch some of his tape. The hits he lays on some people are absolutely devastating. He might be listed at 6 foot, but he plays more like 6'2", 200. Again, just because that's what they're listed as doesn't necessarily mean that's what they play as. Again, there's a thing called game speed and film speed. Python Knight says, what about getting Breesy? Breesy at number 6 is definitely possible because, again, I've talked about the Lions potentially getting Jalen Carter because of now C.J. Stroud being in the draft. Realistically, the odds of that happening are about 30 to 40%, in my opinion. There's about a 40% chance that maybe Carter falls all the way to number 4, but that's still very unlikely. What's more likely, as you said, is that Breesy is there at number 6, and I like Breesy. I like Breesy a lot at number 6, but Breesy is, in most people's consensus opinions, he's the pick for the Lions at number 6. So for me, I'm not going to ask you guys to go and watch him because everybody's talking about Brian Breesy because everybody considers him to be the consensus pick for the Lions at number 6 because he's the second best defensive interior lineman, and at number 6, he's going to be most likely the best interior lineman available. Let's see here. Hatman says, can't remember his name, but played for Cincinnati at linebacker, and he looks good. Here's Johnny says, amazing how well running backs play in their contract years at Patty Grimes, a.k.a. Saquon Barkley. That is a good point. Anyway, back to the segment. The third player I would look at is a linebacker by the name of Trenton Simpson. Now, this is the linebacker from Clemson. This guy has gotten a lot of looks. He's considered the best linebacker in the draft. But the reason why I want people to look at him is because he, I think, is a perfect fit for this Detroit Lions system. He's a very well sideline-to-sideline tackler. He has coverage skills, which is something that Lions linebackers have had problems with over the years. We have guys that can make tackles, a.k.a. Gerard Davis, but their coverage skills are absolutely terrible. Trenton Simpson actually has some pretty decent coverage skills, which would help the Lions immensely because now you have a cornerback that can both cover and tackle. So Trenton Simpson is a guy that I think would fit very well. And again, you could get Trenton Simpson potentially at that number 18 pick. He could fall down far enough to get to that point because of the quarterbacks, because of other positions. He could fall down to number 18. So that's a guy you should potentially take a look at. The only thing is that based upon Brad Holmes' drafting history, Holmes is most likely not going to take a linebacker in the first round. Holmes has yet to take a linebacker any higher than round 4. So that's why I don't really think that the Lions are going to draft Trenton Simpson. But Brad Holmes also said that they're looking for players that make a difference. He's looking for difference makers. He's looking for top talent players. Trenton Simpson would definitely fall in that category. Which is then why, like I said, with Brad Holmes not wanting to draft linebackers high, a much better guy, in my opinion, that would fit at linebacker would be a guy from Iowa that I've been very high on for the last 6-7 months, Jack Campbell. Jack Campbell is a linebacker you could very well get in the second round, but he has all the intangibles. He has all of he has everything you're looking for in a linebacker, and you won't have to pay a first-round draft pick for him. Jack Campbell would be a perfect fit also for the Lions. He is very much like Malcolm Rodriguez. He is a scrappy dude that is going to make tackle after tackle. He is not afraid to go and stick his nose into a pile to go and get somebody. But Jack Campbell also has decent coverage skills. So in my opinion, the 4 rookies that Lions fans need to pay real close attention to, Devin Witherspoon, the cornerback out of Illinois, Christian Gonzalez, the cornerback out of Oregon, Trenton Simpson, the linebacker out of Clemson, and Jack Campbell, the linebacker out of Iowa. Those right there are the 4 guys that I think that Lions fans really, really need to pay attention to. We're going to take a look at a couple of comments here really quickly. Sorry, I just put my pad of paper down. Joseph Holmes says, Holmes going to take a linebacker in the first? Maybe. Again, that's why I said what I said with Jack Campbell. There's no guarantee that Brad Holmes will take that linebacker in the first round. Again, based upon his past history, he's not been very prone to do it, if at all. So for me, that's why Jack Campbell in the second round makes better sense. Kool-Aid says, trade number 6 to Atlanta at number 8. Depending upon the compensation, you'd have to put in some more in there rather than just a straight-up swap. Silent says, if you haven't seen Drew Sanders, you should check him out. Definitely will. Python Knight says, Holmes, in my view, will draft most likely a cornerback, a defensive lineman, D-tackle, or another DN. or a quarterback if he finds what he wants. I don't think he's going to draft a quarterback, Python Knight, because none of these quarterbacks fit what he's looking for. Jared Goff is Brad Holmes' guy. You have to think about this from perspective here. When GMs find their guys, they're their guys. And Brad Holmes was instrumental in Jared Goff getting drafted by the Rams. He helped scout him. Brad Holmes knows everything there is about on Jared Goff. He traded for him. He drafted him. I don't see any quarterback that he's going to realistically think is worth drafting at number 6 that's available, because I only think that there's 3 quarterbacks that are even worth their salt this year, and that's Stroud, Young, or Levis. And realistically, I don't like Levis. I think that he is very vastly overrated. And then you got Young, who I think is too small and undersized. He's going to get broke at the next level. And then Stroud, I don't like Ohio State quarterbacks because there's not been a single Ohio State quarterback that has ever done anything in the NFL except change positions or retire early. Now, let's see what these other comments have. The next comments is Jeff Berg says he likes the linebacker from Alabama. I think that's Jeff Toto or Tutu, something to that effect. Patty Grimes says, can Jack Campbell and Dan Campbell coexist on the same team? That would be a very interesting set of circumstances, Patty. That would be a very, very interesting set of circumstances. But I think they could. I think they could very well coexist. Joseph Ostin says, positional value may not matter if Brad deems the talent exceptional, example being Beyond and Simpson. I mean, it's possible. Again, I'm not going to say that they won't do it. But again, based upon talent needs and based upon how I think the board's going to fall, I don't see it happening. Here's Johnny says Jack Campbell. Dan M says QB, no thanks. Python Knight says, I do agree on terms that the QB, but he also said if he finds what he wants, he will take him. It's just a possibility I'm at least willing to entertain. Hey, if he can find the dude, that's great. But again, Brad Holmes is only going to draft that dude if he truly thinks that he's a difference maker. Brad Holmes also has to stay practical. He has to draft what the team needs, and this team needs defense in a bad way. The offense is not the problem. It's the defense. So if he drafts a quarterback, that quarterback had better be the next coming of Tom Brady, Joe Montana, and freaking Dan Marino all in one, and maybe even little Peyton Manning. Because if he drafts a quarterback and that guy turns out to be a bust when we had a guy that was out there that was a difference maker at defense, Brad Holmes will never hear the end of it. And Brad Holmes knows that. Hatman says, I agree, but we do need a good backup quarterback. And again, like I said, I don't think that the Lions will not draft a quarterback. I think they'll draft one round 4 or later as a developmental project. Silence says, a QB I really like is Clayton Tune from Houston in the later rounds. Python Knight says, I sort of want Holmes to pick up Hendon Hooker in round 3. Oh, I'm not really big on Hendon Hooker. And the reason why is because of that ACL tear. Because Hendon Hooker, while he can throw the ball, a big aspect of his game is being mobile. And ACL tears are still a very tricky business in the NFL. Jeff Berg says, late round QB to develop is a real possibility. I totally 100% agree. Okay, folks. We've definitely gone past the hour of allotted time, which I will totally credit to you guys and all of your comments, which have been absolutely outstanding. So with that being said, I thank you all for tuning into the show. I thank you all for the participation. I thank you all for those that tuned in and watched. I think we had up to 35 people tuned in at one point, which is the most I've had ever since I started this show. So let's by all means make sure everybody tunes in next week. We're going to talk more about the draft. We're going to talk more about Lions news. We're going to talk more about free agency, especially as, you know, we're going to have the conference championship game this weekend, which means we're going to have our last 2 teams that are going to be playing for all the marbles in February, which means pretty much we'll have a pretty good idea of who's probably going to be available and who's probably not going to be available. But until that time, this is David Pyke from the New Era Lions getting ready to sign out. I thank you all for joining and tuning in. And for those that are going to watch post-stream, I thank you all for watching the show. And until next time, one pride, and God bless, my friends.